Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And we're delighted that you welcomed us into your home. You know, we would love to hear from you. So send us an email with your question or your comment to jimandjoy@ewtn.com. Well, today we bring to you a beautiful musician, wife, mother, daughter of God, Danielle Rose. She has a ministry. It's called Danielle Rose Ministries, but her website is daniellerose.com.
With two L's.
Two L's, and she has produced 5 CDs, right? And we listened to some of her music, went to her website, listened. We were truly blessed.
Absolutely.
So you are really going to be blessed.
And she'll share about her own journeys as a young woman, spent time with Mother Teresa in India, has traveled to China as well, spent some time in a monastery, discerning there, eventually becomes wife and mother of 3. She's now in a momastery, she calls it. I think
I love
a
it.
momastery,
Yes.
her home. So she loves being a wife and a mother. So many of her songs. She has one album, Culture of Life, so I just went to that online and started listening to the songs. And there was one song, I think it's a part of that one, The Saint That Is Just Me. The Saint That Is Just Me. This is one of her songs, and listening to it, and she's just kind of sharing. I wouldn't get all the words right, but she's saying, you know, I thought I'd be like Mother Teresa or the next Mother Teresa, or like St. Francis and serve the poor. Thought I'd be a martyr like Cecilia, and so on. And we all have these thoughts because we love the saints. We admire them. We should be inspired by the saints. But guess what? You can't be that saint.
Right.
And sometimes, and I said, wow, that's wise, you know, because we can get confused and think we lose our own identity. And so she finally comes to the conclusion there, I need to be the saint that is just me.
Yes.
That's where we need to be. We need to say, Lord, the best way I could bring glory to you and worship you is to be me. And I just have a hard time understanding who that is, you know?
Right.
So hopefully through our spouses and other people and listening to the Lord and being inspired by the saints, but say, I just have to be me. I wasn't called to be Mother Teresa. I wasn't called to be in a religious order. I was called to love my kids and to change diapers and to find God in the midst of this, and also to use my gift of singing. She's a missionary of music. But you know, she's working her life out.
Right.
And we all have to work our lives out, and hopefully in the end we will be a saint that's just me.
Right. And it's a beautiful journey. We're all on a journey to holiness, right? And so you know, she has a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old, you know, and I can remember when we moved here to Alabama, I had 3 babies under 2 because I had twins.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, God, this isn't what I got, you know, you with the pastor, I was going to help you with ministry and everything. And I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and doing all this stuff. And I was like, what's happening? He was about killing me. Yeah. He was killing me that I would die to myself, that I would live to him. And who was he using? Those 3 little precious children. And that's what he does. In your very ordinary life, God is doing extraordinary things, making us holy.
It's Danielle Rose, DANIELLE Rose.com. It's going to be a blessed show this Advent season. Don't go away. We'll be right back. You're going to be greatly blessed through this precious child of God. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and we're delighted that you are with us today. Today, I bring to you Danielle Rose. You can go to our website, daniellerose.com. Well, here you are, this beautiful mother of 3, and you certainly were on a journey, and we want you to tell our family at home a little bit about Danielle Rose.
Well, it's so nice to be here with you, Jim and Joy. Thank you for your yes to God in your marriage and your family. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, a little bit of my story. I was very blessed to be raised in a Catholic family. My mom and dad, Dan and Rosie, that's how I got my name, Danielle Rose. They are just, my mom is like the sweetest lady in the world. Like Blessed Mother, and my dad is a silly goofball with a big tender heart. And so when I was 17, I was blessed. They allowed me to go over to India to spend some time serving the poor. And that trip changed my life forever. Spending time with Mother Teresa's sisters, the Missionaries of Charity, there was something that I learned that Mother Teresa said, which was that she said that America was the poorest country in the world because we didn't know God. And when I saw the slums there in India and I saw the depth of the poverty, the material poverty, and I thought that interiorly if our souls were even poorer than that, it really shook me to the bones. And so I asked God, what was it that he wanted me to do in response to that? And I felt like he was asking me to use the gift of music he had given to me to be able to help bring his love to souls that didn't know about his love. Music has a way of being able to kind of soften people's hearts to be able to know, and kind of receive his love, maybe in ways that they might not be open to hearing it otherwise. And so I began to write music for God. Music had been a part of my life growing up and everything, but I felt like now it needed to belong to him. So after college, then I started traveling full-time on the road as a music missionary to bring his love through music to wherever God would open the doors to go sing.
What school did you attend?
I attended University of Notre Dame in Indiana. Okay. And God really used that time in a powerful way to draw me to fall in love with the Catholic Church and the sacraments, and to really encounter the Blessed Mother there. Really, a lot of times, sometimes in the culture you hear about all the yucky stuff on the news, but you don't hear about the good things, and there's lots of beautiful things happening at Notre Dame too, I would say,
the good.
in response to that.
So you started traveling after Notre Dame? So
after I graduated from Notre Dame, I started traveling full-time on the road as a music missionary. And after a number of years, it had been about 5 years, then I felt like God was leading me to enter the convent to discern my vocation. At that time, I didn't have any idea that that wouldn't be the final end of the story. I thought that I was supposed to surrender my music ministry into his hands and go to serve him, in the convent. And after 2.5 years of discernment in the novitiate, then God showed me through my formation director there and interiorly that it wasn't his will for me to make vows. And so this was a great mystery and took a lot of courage to be able to re-enter back into the world. And during my time in the convent, there were some missionaries that came to share about their work in China. It had a really deep impact on me. I thought that I would be spending my life kind of interceding for China in the convent. But when his will became clear that I was actually supposed to go back out of the convent into the world and continue following Jesus that way, find out his will for my vocation, then I started traveling using the music ministry to serve on behalf of a China Little Flower orphanage in China. So I was trying to be an underground spokesperson for this orphanage that couldn't be explicit on the internet about what really were the stories and situations happening in China surrounding the one-child policy, surrounding orphanages. It's a very complex kind of situation. So I started traveling doing that, just try to raise spiritual and material support for this orphanage. And in that process, there were a group of young adults and a couple priests that came with me on a mission trip over to China, try to shoot a music video there. And my husband-to-be was on that trip. And 4 months later, then we were engaged.
What a divine appointment.
He is a beautiful man. And then we were married later in our lives. But now God's blessed us with 3 children, and we're praying that God will bless us with more children.
So he was on a trip to the same place where you were going?
He came on the mission trip that I was helping to run.
They're in China?
They're in China.
And now where is he from? Where is his home?
We are both from Minnesota, but we were living in Los Angeles at the time. He was working for Metanoia Films. They made the movie called Bella. I don't know if you ever saw that. So at the time I was working on the recording a Culture of Life album in LA. He was at Metanoia Films, and then God brought our lives together there, and then we moved back to Minnesota. Now we're here.
That's amazing that you went all the way to China to meet this guy who was from Minnesota to become your husband.
Thanks be to God.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Now, when you were in the monastery, what was the process to discern that you weren't supposed to stay?
That's a wonderful question. The church is really wise with discerning a priestly or religious vocation, that it's not this instant thing. It takes between 6 and 10 years before you make final vows. And the church is wise in that, because just because you're falling in love with Jesus and you want to give your whole life to him doesn't mean that you're supposed to be called to be a sister or a priest. We're all called to give our lives entirely to Christ and to be laying down our lives to serve him, and it's to figure out what way that really is. What's God created you to be. I knew I was called to surrender everything to God, but it's that kind of finer discernment with the community to say, is this the charism? Is this the exact way that God's asking me to lay down my life for him? And ultimately, in that situation, it was, no, this is not exactly the way. Same if you can discern marriage with one individual and say, you're a beautiful soul, but we're not the right people to become a sacrament together. So that's a big surrender, but it was such a beautiful process, because that time of formation in the convent prepared me for my vocation to marriage. I wouldn't have been ready for this vocation without that time.
Do you feel when you go in, and you know that you're going in for discernment, do you feel rejected, or do you feel like this is just not for me? This is not the door I'm supposed to walk through. I think there's another door. How do you process that? That's
a very good question as well. I think, to be perfectly honest, there is a process of healing that takes place, both with, just with the Lord of, Lord, I thought that you wanted me to be espoused to you in this way, so what does this mean about your love for me? And so there's kind of that tender process with the Lord of coming to know his love in the way that he wants you to receive it, and not just the way that you think that you should be, serving him. And so, the community was very supportive to me to embrace God's will. They want they wanted me to do God's will. And so, so God showed me that the way that he created me to love and be loved was in the sacrament of marriage. That was going to be the way that I laid down my life for him. And to be perfectly honest, I think that it called me to sacrifice in many, many more ways that I would not have done had I been in the convent.
And for the rest of your life, because
for the rest of my life.
We're married 41 years. Jim is making me holy.
Yes.
And I hope I'm making him holy. I mean, it really is. It's a journey, right? Because you have to die to yourself. You have to die to your attitudes and everything that you are or you think you are, and say, no, I'm called to serve and love you with all of my heart, soul, mind, and strength.
I thought that when I looked at discerning with Missionaries of Charity, for example, and they get up at like 4:30 in the morning, I thought, there's no way I could do this. I had no idea that I would have actually gotten more sleep as a missionary of charity than I do now as a mother.
This is true.
It costs everything, it does.
Right.
But then thanks be to God, because like you said, there's so many opportunities to die to self. These little ones are helping me to actually learn how to not live for myself, but give my life over to the Lord in ways that he knew this is the way that I would learn to love and be loved.
Yeah, I'm thinking of when Joy and I were first married, and we had Matthew, our first child, when we were in seminary, Protestant seminary.
Yes.
And then we came down to Birmingham, and Joy was pregnant with twins. So we were still very young. I married Joy at 19. So
I was
about 20, 21. So these twins are born, and we bring them home, and I'm just exhausted. I'm full asleep on the floor, and I'm going to this deep sleep. And all of a sudden I hear these kids, and I look behind me, and there's the twins. They look like little birds, and and I said, they're not going away. I said, and then the other kids there, and I said, they're mine. I mean, it was like that. And so, this is the way God kills you. It takes your life to give you life.
It's a martyrdom.
It is.
I do believe,
but it's the best.
It is.
My daughter Rebecca she's pregnant with her 8th child, and she was at the market one time, and she had all these kids in the buggy, and I mean, people say, is this a daycare? Rebecca's like, no, this is my family. And the checker said to her, girl, she said, ain't nobody coming to get these children. Like, you better snap out of it.
That's because Rebecca was falling apart that day.
Yeah, she was having a bad day. And she just said, she just spoke right into her life. Like, you better snap out of it, girl. Nobody's coming to get these children. You're their mom. Like, step up to the plate. And that's how it is. Because when we are weak, then we are strong. And I would say to God, you're trying to make me dependent upon you. That's the goal.
It's true.
Right?
That's what Christmas is.
Right. More of Jesus and less of us.
He came to be totally dependent, to teach us that that's how he had to be in a relationship with God. Totally, totally dependent on him.
So wonderful.
You use some interesting terms. Can you share some of those terms that you use? Like, I think I saw the monastery.
Yes, God called me to the monastery.
To the monastery.
Yes. Well, so in the convent, it's a hidden life of sacrifice and prayer. And it's hidden from the world doesn't see kind of all the sacrifices that are taking place, but that when they're in union with God's will, they're very powerful in the body of Christ. You know, like a cloistered convent is very powerful prayer. And so I feel like, you know, there are many ways that moms, each family has kind of its own charism. For me, I felt like God's called me to the kind of a hidden life as a mom. I feel called to be a stay-at-home mom. And I don't feel called to the tremendously kind of active public ministry in the context of that vocation. And so all these little hidden sacrifices at home, I'm in the monastery. It's all these things that God sees. He's sanctifying me. He's using all those little things in powerful ways. I really believe that in the body of Christ, if I would just be present to him interiorly through each of those little acts of love through the day. I think that Mother Teresa, who's my hero, she was a missionary of charity, and you know, I think that her work was so powerful for souls because each little thing that she did was infused with so much love. And I think that us as stay-at-home moms, that we have the same opportunity to do that as well. I mean, any of us in any of our lives, but in a particular way, I think the hiddenness of a mother at home has tremendous capacity to be a life of prayer and sacrifice, like a monastery.
Right. Well, and it goes on and on and on in the journey, you know, as teenagers and as they go, and you think like, they don't appreciate me. They don't get me. They're not saying thank you. They're not being nice. And Jesus says, you're not doing it for them anyway. Everything that you're doing for me.
It's for Jesus.
It's totally for Jesus. But you got to get that again and again and again.
It is. In fact, the time in the convent really prepared me for that, because one thing that I learned why I think God really called me there was to realize that unless Jesus was really my number one, unless I was in love with him to know that he could satisfy everything in me, that no other human being could actually do that, then I wasn't ready for marriage. Because marriage, like your spouse can't completely fulfill you, only Christ can. And definitely your children can't. You have to be willing to lay down your life for your spouse, and then the fruit of that love in your children, serving them, you're doing it for Jesus, period. You're doing it to glorify him. You're doing it to say, I love you, Jesus, and this is the way I'm showing you that I love you, is by serving my spouse, by serving my children. And if we don't kind of have that interiorly rooted, then you will have an identity crisis.
You will. Well, and you'll have all these illusions like, I know what's going to make me happy. I'm going to get married. And then you get married and then he doesn't make you happy. I know it will make me happy. Children will make me happy. So then I have children and then I'm not happy. You know, and it just goes on and on and on. You know, because your happiness has to come from Jesus alone.
It comes from sacrificing your life for Jesus and doing it with an authentic, joyful surrender to say, I love you so much. This is what I'm going to do for you, Jesus. And I'm not doing it because the world's going to understand it or recognize it, or even my spouse or even my kids at times.
Right.
I'm doing it because you see this is the way you're asking me to lay down my life to say yes to you, and I want to do that willingly.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I could really see what you were saying now about the convent and wanting to be the spouse of the Lord in that particular way. And yet God's saying, I'm going to connect you with me in that way. It's just going to be through this vocation.
It is.
Of marriage and the family. Because that's the bottom line. We all got to get to that place where Jesus is really, you know, our groom, and we're totally yielded to him. There's a variety of ways to doing that, and that's your song, you know, the saint that is me.
Yes. What I think is so beautiful about the vocation of marriage is because I think that it allows the humanity of Jesus, like in his humanity and his divinity. I think that his humanity is manifested in a really particular way in the vocation of marriage. And I think that's it's just so beautiful. I'm really grateful that he lets me live this vocation to be able to know his love in that way. Just the humility, the humanity of it.
We're going to take a break at this point, and as we go to break, we'd like to share one of Danielle's music videos with you. This is Little Flower, and we know and hope that you'll enjoy it.
has been. He passed through the doors that were locked within me. Granting forgiveness.
Visiting with Danielle Rose, and coming back from the break, you heard one of her songs, Glorious Wounds, from her Culture of Life CD, along with some of her photographs. Before we continue our discussion, we're going to hear from Catherine Hadro, who is the host of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Now, Catherine, tell us about an interview that you had with a pro-life lawmaker this week.
Hi, Jim and Joy. Absolutely. This week, we are profiling outgoing Representative Diane Black of Tennessee. Black was a steadfast pro-life leader throughout her time in Congress. We'll highlight her legislative achievements and look to how she plans to remain an advocate for life beyond Capitol Hill. We'll also talk to Michael O'Neill, who's known as the Miracle Hunter, about the crucial role Mary plays in the pro-life movement. There are so many beautiful Marian feast days this month, and of course, our mother is a big reason for the Advent season, so you'll want to catch that conversation. And on this week's show, as we do every week, we will share our pro-life call to action. It's a way for you to help advance the pro-life movement and to get involved yourself. To find out this week's call to action, simply go to prolifeweekly.com. Again, that's prolifeweekly.com. You can catch all of this and more on EWTN Pro-Life Weekly at 10 p.m. this Thursday and again on Sunday at 10 a.m. I hope to see you all there, but for now, back to you at home.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for keeping the pro-life issue before our very faces and always calling us to action. Danielle, wonderful to be with you. You just have a short time left. What's on your heart? What's on your mind?
Well, I want to be able to say thank you to my grandma.
Okay.
My grandma, Marion, she loves watching EWTN, and in her house, it's on pretty much, I think, all day, every day. I know she prays so many hours each day for the intentions that have been entrusted to her heart. So I just want to say hi, Grandma Marion. I don't know what my life would look like without her prayers. I want to just, in a particular way today, I just want to thank all the grandmas and grandpas, especially my Grandma Marion, but all the grandmas and grandpas that watch EWTN each day. And you have lives of hidden sacrifices in your home. You have lots of physical, emotional, spiritual sufferings, the intentions of people in your family that you carry that are filled with lots of different sufferings. And the way that you offer those up and unite them to Jesus on the cross, and that you pray for those, your loved ones, that you pray for your family, your friends, all the intentions of the world, those prayers are so powerful, and they're critical in the body of Christ to be able to help souls be brought to Jesus. I'm utterly convinced of that. And I know Mother Teresa in her work, she called the co-workers were the suffering souls that united their prayers and sacrifices for the physical work that was done by the hands of the missionaries of charity, but she always attributed that work to being kind of the heartbeat of that work to those intercessory prayers of those who were suffering in the home. And I know my grandma's prayers have changed my life, brought me to Jesus and to the sacraments in the church, and so many grandmas and grandpas as well. So I just want to thank you for that, for your missionary calling in your intercessory prayer at home.
Well, beautiful
Thank
word.
you.
I think you've just been adopted by multiple million grandparents. I mean,
I'll take it. I'll take the prayers. Please pray for me to learn how to be the mother and wife that my husband and children deserve, because I have a long ways to go with that.
Just have a few seconds, but the song that we heard and the video that we saw a part of, is that online?
It is. It's on my
website?
website, DanielleRose.com. The channel Little Flower video, Little Flower, and then the Glorious Wounds song. Yes, that's a song about how God wants to take our wounds and make them glorified like His resurrected wounds.
You were really there in China at such
was.
amazing historic places.
Yes, it changed my life to know the gospel is more powerful than anything. The people there are not afraid to even be martyred because they know that Jesus is more powerful than death.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to having you back on Friday and unpacking more fully your story and being a missionary of music, a music missionary, and what that means for all of us.
Thank you.
And so we'd like to close the show now with another of Danielle's songs. It's Psalm 51, Be Blessed by this music, by these words coming alive to us, and know that the best is yet to come in your life. Keep it on EWTN. Bye now.
Have mercy, O God, in your kindness, in your compassion, blot out my offense. Oh, wash me more and more from my Cleanse me from all my sin. My transgression